Hello and welcome to the Book by Book, a podcast about the odd book or two you've read. I'm your host Scott and I'm not alone, Toby's here too. This episode we're talking about Finders Keepers by Stephen King. It's going to be a pretty spoiler heavy episode, but if that's okay with you, continue on and I'll see you on the other side. Gym breaker, I suppose, but
right, yeah, I guess you could say that, but it depends. What's you would like? You asked me in text message before we came on, like, was it a good sesh? What constitutes a good sesh? As a gym newbie, I don't know what the definition of good sesh is. Like, I was in the gym for an hour. Well, I was actually in the gym for 40 minutes, and then I did 40 minutes in the pool afterwards. I sweated loads.
That's a good sign.
Was it a good session? I don't know.
Are you on the weights? Are you on the treadmill?
No, treadmill I stay as far away from possible. I'm not one of those screaming people.
I'm a bit of a grunter.
Oh God, no!
Because
it's just the most embarrassing thing in the world.
It is, but it's out of my control. Because I also listen to music really loud. Actually, recently, because there's Wi-Fi in my gym now, I listen to like YouTube videos of like motivational speeches. It really helps. You know, the guy just going, "Yeah, you gotta want it more than the next guy. You gotta push harder than you could ever push before." Just that solidly for like an hour, which is a bit too much.
Yeah, that just sounds awful.
Because I get a bit bored on the treadmill, I will just whack up the speed to like full blown Tom Cruise sprint. And that's when I'll start grunting. I'll start going, because I'm just, because I can't really do that on the pavement. I don't know, the mentality of running on the street and in a gym is very different for me.
Yeah.
And I just like going for a flat out sprint for as long as I can on a treadmill. Mm-hmm. On a pavement, I can't do it. I can go for a lot longer on a treadmill than on a pavement. Yeah. I don't know why that is. I don't know if it's just obstacles. It's really hard to sprint and not run into an obstacle immediately, like there's a traffic light, there's people. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, it's the one instrument or apparatus I haven't used in the gym at the moment. Is the treadmill, just so boring.
Fair enough. No smooth way to segue. Toby, at the gym, have you ever sort of like discovered a trunk hidden away full of, say, I don't know, like sort of money? And sort of
no,
books.
I haven't, but I'm pretty sure I could lift it now.
You wouldn't need to go back and get the spade. You could just bare pull it out of the ground.
There's your segue.
Do you have the strength to review some? No, let's move on. Toby, I've read Finders Keepers.
Woo! Part 2 of the Mercedes trilogy by Stephen King. Good one, Scott. So let's recap. You enjoyed the first one. You likened it to a beach read, if I'm right. A quick page turner.
Yeah, it was very entertaining. A lot more than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
I guess just Stephen King doing crime was never really, I can't wait. You know, when you read about his new upcoming one, Fairy Tale, I got a text from you and it was like, there wasn't much info. It was just Stephen King, Fairy Tale, 900 pages. I'm getting it straight away. We've got to review it. Like that was enough to excite you. Yeah. I don't know if he now did a crime one. You'd be like, Stephen King, crime novel, get on it.
No, but after reading 11/22/63, I'd be apprehensive.
No, that's crazy. I'm really bad at predicting what you're going to like and not like.
Yeah.
But I didn't think you were going to like Norwegian Wood.
Oh, I loved it.
I'm kind of a fan of that one. And I thought you were going to love 11. And you hated it.
I was,
very boring.
Yeah.
But let's not get into this. On our thoughts on that. Track back.
Finders Keepers.
Yes. It's an odd one for me. I'm going to throw in one of my bizarre comparisons. Do you remember when Stranger Things season 2 came out? And do you remember that season? I'm always late on these things, so I saw it like a month after, and all my friends had already been talking about it. I said, "No, I'm watching it. It's pretty good." You know, I'm in 2 episodes, and everyone, like 3 people specifically said the same thing, which is why it rings in my brain.
Yeah.
Oh, it's really good. Yeah. You can skip episode 8. Huh? Yeah, it's really good. Yeah, you can skip episode 8. You don't need it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, is it not good? No, it's fine. It's fine. It's good. It's good. You just don't need it.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to watch it. I'm not going to randomly skip out episode 8. What are you talking about? No, it's really good. But just that. Everyone, like 3 people said that.
It was just like, what? I enjoyed it, but what?
But people literally reviewing it and sort of clipping that one out.
Yes.
And it's just an odd way to review it or explain to someone that it wasn't it was filler, or for anyone who has no idea what we're talking about, it's season 2 Stranger Things, and I think 11 just runs away for an episode and goes to like the city, and she sort of meets up with a bunch of like-minded, superpowered people.
Yes,
which if memory serves, they've completely dropped. I think they were planning a spin-off maybe, or they just wanted to open up to some future directions, which they've now dropped. It seems anyway. And that's kind of where I am with this Finders Keepers.
Yes.
You've given enough hints. You've always gone like, Mr. Mercedes, that whole trilogy is great. Mr. Mercedes and the last one specifically, the second one, you can skip that one, but it's not bad. Everyone has a very dismissive feel on it.
It does. It feels almost like it's not canon, but it is canon.
I can see why. I can see why everyone has this, but it's odd because I thought it was a really good book. I guess it's almost the shame of it is that it's included in this Bill Hodges trilogy.
Yes, I completely agree.
Did you know that Holly was going to be in The Outsider?
Not at this point.
But when you're reading The Outsider, is it like, oh my God, is that Holly? And then you were like a very nice surprise.
No, I don't remember.
Oh, okay. Because this feels like a book that would have benefited, like, okay, Stephen King just has a new book out. Whoa, is that Hodges? Hodges? Is that Holly? Is that Jerome? That's cool. Like a nice tie-in, like he has done before with a bunch of his other books, but not made a sort of fanfare about it. They just sort of dropped him.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because they're not in the first half solidly. And then in the sort of third quarter, they're in it very lightly, and then they're all over the end. But it's basically not their book, and they're not the star of this. Yeah, I do, knowing I could pretty much guess what happens in the next book as an outcome, like what's going to happen to Hodges. I do kind of wish there was a few more Hodges just up and running, solving crimes books before
I agree.
the end. I don't know if he can go back and retcon it and
fill in the gaps.
I've been listening to these lovely audiobooks of like the Alien movies. But what they've done is they wanted to bring Sigourney Weaver in it. Right. This character, Elaine Ripley. But within the process of the movie, it's like, how do we write a new novelization of our own story with Ripley? So what they've done is, in between the first one and the second one, when she was in hypersleep floating around, they've woken her up, put her on another adventure, put her back to sleep and gone, we don't think she's going to remember any of this. Like they've had to, like, you know what I mean? Right, it's pretty. It's like, I think it was a book, but it's just a really fun audio book for me. There's a bunch of them. I think like 3 were commissioned, but it's just funny how they have to keep tying it in with these movies because it's already written. I don't know how you feel about this retconning. There was talk about Neil Blomkamp doing Alien 3, ignoring the movie we know Alien 3, just going back to, you know, I think there was talk of a RoboCop 2, ignoring the second RoboCop movie. They've done it with the Halloween films recently.
The Halloween films, yeah, exactly.
How do you feel about that?
I quite like what they're doing with the Halloween films, because the franchise kind of just it didn't live up to its initial premise, and it became just a bit laughable, really, compared to what else was. So to reboot it, in essence, or what they've done is really good. The fact that they can bring Jamie back, Jamie Lee Curtis back after her dying in Halloween H2O, I think it was.
I guess I don't know.
Have them facing off against each other, like they're two, making her as equal.
Grizzled badass.
Really good.
I guess they are fun, and it's like, well, people get it, and it's not that complicated, so just go for it and have fun. Yeah. But there's something weird about, hey, ignore this movie, but pay attention to these 2 movies.
Yeah, it's an interesting. I guess, it's almost like you alluded to there. It's an element of what they're doing with the books. like the fan service books, and taking characters and just writing a story that's separate to the main story. But what they're doing here is exactly that, but with film. Like they're taking established characters and just doing their own version of something that may have come before.
I'm trying to think if that exists in book form. I don't know if you know the Ender's Games books.
No.
And it's not that he retconned it, but he did this crazy thing. It's like a sort of child military genius. It's like sci-fi alien fighting, and there's like the first book particularly is very, very good. And
Harrison Ford is in the film, isn't he?
Mm-hmm. They did a film. It's not bad, but it's that thing of just trying to capture a lot in a film, and what is the target audience of this? Because it's not really a kid's book. Well, I mean, it is, but it's one of those books for me that I'm glad I read as an adult. You get so much. There's a lot of political stuff. There's a lot of like sort of military conscience. Like if someone doesn't know, did you see the film?
Yes, I have done.
But that climax in the book, it's like, holy shit, like, can you get someone to do something terrible without them knowing it for the good of mankind? Anyway, sorry. He started writing this series of books from the character of Bean, his best friend, in which he is the ultimate genius and he is the Top Gun guy and he's pulling all the strings behind the scenes, which is like, what the hell? Bean is the guy that what?
Yeah.
It's like doing another Star Wars film and going, it was Han Solo was the sort of genius. I mean, he's a good character. Anyway, Finders Keepers. Sorry, a nice waffle for the morning.
Yeah. So Finders Keepers. Take us through the blow by blow. Give us a bit of.
So we start in the 70s, late 70s, and a sort of elusive writer is just woken up in his sleep with a gun in his face and he's being robbed, and he sort of gives them the combination to his safe. They're just robbing him, and one of the key robbers is talking to him because it turns out he's a fan of some books this writer's written, the Jimmy Gold novels, and he gives him over, and in the trunk, in the safe is a bunch of like moleskin notebooks and a bunch of money. He's like, just take the money, leave the notebooks. The guy's like, no way, we're taking all of it. And they sort of get into a squabble. The guy who's robbing him is like, hey, I just want you to know you sold out with that last Jimmy Gold book. So the guy's like, you don't know anything. You're like, what do you know about literary? And they get into like, the writer can't help but sort of snark back.
Yeah. And
he gets shot for his trouble. He's murdered. The three robbers get away. And the guy who did the murder, they're all like, what the hell we weren't supposed to murder him. It's just a straight robbery. That's a lot heavier than we planned. And they pull over and they're just sort of talking. And I've forgotten his name, that's a bit lame. Morris Bellamy. So they pull over and they're still talking, and Morris just shoots the other two murderers, just sort of, criminals.
Yeah.
And he sort of stashes it, and he sort of glee. We get more and more that he sort of like loves this character, Jimmy Gold. He sort of goes the next day. He sort of goes to see a friend of his, and he's like, "Hey, dude," he's like a rare bookseller.
That's it.
A sort of book agent, and he's like, "Yo, so I stole those books from that author we talked about. When can we sell them? You said that they would be hot for a while, and we need to leave it a few years." And the guy's like, "Are you crazy? What are you talking about?" It's like, "What?" And there's a sort of flashback to the conversation. And on this bookseller's guide, it was sort of haphazard and not really a real conversation. It was more like all those books would be worth something. And although he was talking to what turns out to be quite a dangerous, deranged criminal guy, I guess he saw him more as just a sort of loopy friend. And he's like, "Dude, here's what I'm going to say to you. Go and bury these books and don't even think about selling them to like the turn of the century." So I guess the 2000s or something. Which I guess sets this book in the 80s, sorry, not the 70s. Don't ever contact me again. You're out of your mind. And so Morris is like, what the F? Oh, I'm really angry, But he's excited because he still knows that there's unwritten works, and he's like, maybe one of them's a Jimmy Goldsmith novel. But for now, he just does bury it. So he puts it in a trunk and he buries it like at the back of his house in a sort of like, not a reservoir, just a sort of...
Like a grassy...
overgrown, one of those sort of sewer runoff areas.
Yeah.
And then he goes out and he just gets blackout drunk, and he wakes up in a jail cell. And he's talking to his lawyer, and his lawyer's sort of like, you're going to have to do time. There's no getting out of this. They've got you back to the rights. And because he's blackout, he's like, oh no, murder, that's a really big crime. They've got me.
He gets caught for the Morris, not the Morris, the writer shooting.
No, that's what he thinks. But
Right.
It sort of turns out in his blackoutness, he attacked and raped a woman. And so he's put away for that, like a completely unrelated crime. And basically the years roll by. He sort of pleads guilty because he thinks he's going to get a life sentence, but it's just like not a mean judge, but a very severe, serious judge who kind of sees him for what he is and the danger he can be. And he gets life because of the severity of the beating. And the testimony of this woman is quite strong about how she's affected his life. And we've just rolled through the years in a sort of what's it called? Transition. Montage is the word. And this lady keeps coming back to his parole hearings all through her life to say, I'm still affected. This is still a serious thing. And they just keep denying him. And we get little vignettes of what it's like for him, but we don't really slow down 10 years in 2 pages.
Yeah.
Okay. But it's not nice for him. He basically, he's abused a lot. Yeah. He sort of finds ways to make a use of himself because he's so into this character and this writer. He becomes the go-to guy for inmates to write to their wives and girlfriends. For some reason, it feels very British. I don't know why. It's not at all. But I'm sort of picturing sort of porridge and ID and stuff like that. I don't know why. I think I can feel that. Because the way these characters come written are just quite dumb. Like I said, they're like, you're fit, wife, I want to bang you, sort of level of romance. And that's where he's like, does she have a favorite dress? He has to sort of smooth out their words. Yeah. In the meantime, we're back at the Mercedes incident in the early 2000s. And there's just a character who is hit by the car from the incident from the first novel. And he survives, but his family was already financially struggling, and now there's bills to pay, and he's sort of crippled.
Medical bills and stuff like that. That's the limping guy. Yes, I thought it was him when he was in prison, but no, it's actually the father
of Pete. And Pete is kind of our lead character, and Pete is like a 13-year-old boy, and they have to move house, and they move into Morris's old house. So we are going to get these sort of parallels of these two characters, their life kind of running on sort of train tracks-ish in a certain sense. And just out one day, he sees the trunk, and to cut a long story short, he opens up the trunk. He sort of feigns a sick day, gets a shovel, goes back, gets the trunk. And he's 13, and he has no idea what to do about it. But he knows his parents are financially in a lot of trouble and on the verge of splitting up, and his dad has medical bills. So he does ask, is it his sister he asks? What would you do if you got loads of money or something? And she kind of forgets that, but pin in that because it comes back later. And he just decides that he has to, the best course is to anonymously send them bundles of money. There's about 25, 35,000, maybe 50,000 max. So he basically just sends it in an anonymous envelope saying, I hope this helps. And the parents are like, what is this? And they know it's not right. They're like, because they're the kids are like, oh, maybe it's the government helping us out. And they're like, that's not how it works. They don't just send you bundles of cash with, I hope this helps. But they take it. What, we need this. So they just take it. And that stretches for a few years because he only sort of sends 2,000 or 3,000 every few weeks or months. Until finally it's like, I'm really sorry. This is the last one. I hope it's enough. And it sort of did work. The family are together, they're going strong. They made it through a financial hardship. And in the meantime, 10 years have passed or something. He's now a sort of 16-year-old. And he has been reading these books, a couple of poetry runs, a couple of new novels, but there's, I think, 3 or 4 Jimmy Goldsmith novels that were unpublished. And so I think this writer, I was trying to figure out who it could be, and I wrote some notes. I reckon maybe he's sort of I was thinking Paul Auster or Philip Roth, maybe, just because he's really talking about this elusive writer who's, I think they describe him as like an angry curmudgeon who's a bit of a pompous guy. But like he writes these very American novels. Like this is a novel about being American, and it sort of speaks to the youth. So what's the Salinger one? Catcher in the Rye, maybe. I don't know, but maybe he's just sort of blended a whole bunch of stuff he likes. So there was, I think, 3 published books, but the last one people have a bit of a misconception for, because the character, they say he sort of sold out, he got a job in advertising. And I guess I never really had this feel about a character, but certainly musicians and music. I guess the Smiths have always had, or Morrissey more to say. The singer Morrissey was like that thing, did we talk about this already before? When you sort of love a band and you're young, and it feels like, think about Nirvana, they're sort of putting your angst and feelings in words you didn't even know you felt, where you're like, God, I'm being represented here. And Nirvana was very specifically because it was like during a mass time of pop. They weren't the first grunge band, but they were, they caught the disenfranchised, the lost generation. And so like Morris is a prime example of to feel like this guy is representing me, and then to grow up and to say some really tosserish things, and to be on, you know what I mean? Like he's sort of been a bit anti-gay baiting at times. It's like, dude, you were sort of all about acceptance and openness as your youth. Like literally, like I have a friend who has a giant Morrissey tattoo on him because of what his like lyrics once represented. And it's that thing of course I can understand that there's the youth of something. I've lost my point again. So that's, I guess, where people come in, especially Morris comes in with this this writer. Like he loves those first 2 books, and I think he said he read the 3rd book twice. The first time he hated it, the second time was to check he hated it. But he's literally reading the first 2 books again and again and again. It feels like they were written
like
for
his
him.
Bible almost.
And this is a very King staple, I guess, like the obsessed fans. I think he's dealt with that clearly.
Misery.
We get a very Misery vibes. So anyway, Morris gets out, and he's pretty old now. He's sort of served his life sentence. He's done like 3 life sentences, what it was. And he does parole, and it's just, he wants those books back. That's sort of, he's just been obsessing. It's what got him through prison. And you're sort of probably thinking, isn't this like a Bill Hodges book? And you've been talking for like a while, and Bill Hodges coming in. Well, sit tight, because I've got a while to go still before Bill Hodges come up. The kid's doing pretty well in school. The family are thriving. But the little sister is sort of upset she's going to get split from her friends who are going to a more fancy private school. So this is where the kid decides that he's going to try and sell one of like the poetry books. And this is where it sort of all goes tits up for him, if you will.
Yes.
Not only is he's sort of going to put himself out there, but Morris is out there. And Morris is sort of slowly working his way there, but because of like, he's not allowed to leave the area because he's got like is it a warden? What's it called? The guy who checks that you're not on drugs and all that stuff. Inspector man. There's a word. No
idea. Yeah, there is a word. I can't remember it.
He just can't. It's not as simple as driving to the area and digging up the books. But so the kid sort of speaks to his English teacher, and he comes up with some stories like, "Oh, my uncle bought me a first edition signed Jimmy Goldsmith novel. He bought it for really cheap because he bought it off a guy who didn't know what it was, and he knew I liked it. And the teacher is a bit like, that's a bit suspicious, but sure, whatever." But so he gets a list of like, he's like, "But I think I need the money for, whatever. And if I wanted to sell it, who would I take it to?" So he gives him a list of names, but he's like, "Oh, you know what? Take this last one off. He's sort of known for being a bit dodgy," which is exactly what the kid wanted. He needs a dodgy guy. Yeah. So he photocopies some pages and takes it to this dodgy bookseller, which happens to be the guy all the way back from the start who sort of suggested, or jokingly suggested, that they break into his house for them, who immediately knows what and where these are.
Yeah.
So he's also running on hard times, so he sort of sets out to blackmail him. This is sort of where we get Holly, and we start off with these random chapters of Hodges and Holly just doing their own case. They're sort of, I guess they've opened up a company called Finders Keepers, where they're like bail jumpers and stuff like that, very small.
Yeah, bond jumper, like, yeah.
And we just see them sort of wrapping up a case. And I guess it's just to show they're sort of on fire. Like him and Holly are working together. Holly's sort of the computer man in the chair, they call it.
Mm-hmm.
And Hodges is sort of the front. Like he's not scared to go and talk to them.
Jerome's in it a bit, isn't he?
He's at university at this stage.
Yes, that's
doing
right.
Well. Mm-hmm. Hodges is still whacking people with a sock full of quarters.
The happy sack.
And that's where so the sister, Pete's sister, just notices like a massive change in him. And she is friends with Jerome's little sister from book 1. And so she's like, yo, your brother helped find that guy who tried to bomb the stadium. I think he can help. I just think my brother's in trouble. Like he's just acting suspicious as hell. He's super anxious. He's shifty. And she sort of knows at this stage it's him with the money. She's quite good with the secret, but she's just sort of figured it out, you know.
Yeah.
And there was like an incident where she sort of walked into his room and he like was reading one of the notebooks and he stashed it under his pillow. I was like, what do you want? I was like, what was that? He's like, nothing. Which sort of stuck to her all this time. And she does remember the conversation where he said, what would you do if you found lots of money?
Yeah.
So I'd give it to mum and dad. And then like within 6 months, mum and dad started receiving this money. Even though she was like 10 at the time or something, you know, she still remembers it. But Jerome's away. So they basically, so it's actually Pete's sister who calls in Holly and Bill. So like, yo, I don't know what's going on, but I just think my brother's in trouble. And that's kind of where the detective-y stuff comes in. But it's very far and few in between, really. But we're more focused on Pete and Bellamy. I don't know. I don't think we really need to go into the too spoiler-heavy ending, really. But safe to say, there's another sort of like this. Bellamy finds the trunk case empty, just assumes it was his old book, the book guy, the book dealer. He's the only one who could have known about it. And he's like, you know, this is the back of my house, so it would have been hard for him to figure it out. So he goes to see him, and then, you know, he's even though they're quite, not elderly, but I guess they're...
Morris is pretty elderly, isn't he, by this point? I guess,
there's the word for it. He's still a very violent guy, and he learns who the kid is. Like the kid tried to be sly when he was dealing with this book dealer, and he tried to put on a front because he knew he doesn't really have any cards to play. Like this guy can 100% rip him off. He like grew out a mustache to make himself look older, but it kind of makes him look more younger. He changed his name, but the guy would like, because he sort of pulled out a bag with a bunch of other books, and this guy's like a book dealer, he could use the Dewey Decimal System, the markings on the library books, and sort of pin him to what university or college he was going to, and just sort of hone in on him. So he actually has a lot of information about him, which Bellamy gets hold of, who is like a dangerous guy. At this point, you know, people have died, like bludgeoned with an axe. He's just sort of balls to the wall. I want my books. Yeah. He wants Jimmy Gold. So we sort of do get that, like Jerome comes back into it. We do get another sort of racing clock. It's different this time. Obviously, the stakes are not lower, but it comes down to like one family, like the mom, the sister, and Pete are all in danger. And I think that the funnest bit on the detective side is them trying to figure out because Pete stays stum. He's not talking. And so there is some sort of, I'd say miracle detectoring-ish. There is Holly going, you know, there's something else. It's not about the money. If the money dried up here, he has something else. There's something else valuable he's selling. It's like, that's quite a jump. I know why you would think that, but I don't know how you would come to that conclusion because of what we've read. But there's this whole thing about Holly following her hunches, like Bill's sort of taken out under the wing. And it's like, you always have to follow your hunch, even though 90% of the time they won't add to anything. You have to follow them because that's what it's all about. And there's a really fun bit where she's watching The Godfather. And there's the scene where they kill off the guy. And I think it's not famously ad-lib by him, but it's like, what about the bodies? He's like, leave the bodies, bring the cannoli. She doesn't know why she stops watching the film. It's a sort of paralleling of what Pete's done with the money. Like because they're trying to figure out like where would he get this money from? And then it's quiet for a year, and now he's flared up. Now they know he's sort of got they're just figuring out stuff without all the information. So that was a really fun bit, to leave the cannoli connection. Yeah, just flagged about what, like, that's where she figures out he kept something that became important to him, but there was money which wasn't important to him, which he was happy to give out, and now he has to give up that important thing. She kind of figures that much out. So the trio are back again, and they're in a car. It's the same car. I guess it's quite fun because they have to sort of mount the pavement. And it's like, don't worry about the car's been through worse. Like, all right. And I just think, like, if they hit one person, oh my God, they would have been in so much trouble. Like, this is the car. You really drove on a pavement with the car? That's very famous car. Like, why? I think they talk about it in the first book. Like, are you sure this car should exist? This car is like a murder weapon that killed like 20 people. Yeah. But yeah, I guess, Holly just still wanted it. And like, there's some brutal scenes that kind of get a little retconned, which was a shame. Bellamy like shoots Pete's mother in the head real quickly. I'm thinking, okay, there's going to be a bit of conversion here. No, he just sort of pulls it out. She has half a line of dialogue and she gets shot in the head. I'm like, damn, I was not expecting that. And I was sort of excited that this is the stakes. Like, this kid is already lost no matter what happens now. Now it's all about the sister and himself, but in years to come, it's like, damn, I got my mum killed. It's called that the mum kind of wakes up and like the bullet just sort of ripped her skull but didn't kill her. Yeah. I'm not disappointed, but I was like, no. I was literally not excited, but I was like, damn, we're going there. Yeah. To sort of pin it back quite quickly. But it's fine, still makes for a great read. What's it? So she sort of ends in a sort of Mexican standoff, is that the term? Bellamy's got the sister like tied up with a gun to her head, but Pete's got the books on the floor, like covered in lighter fluid, holding a match above them. Give me the books, I'll let the sister go. We'll let the sister go. And all the meanwhile, Hodges and Holly are sort of sneaking in the back in like an old abandoned building. Basically, the books do go up in flames. And Bellamy just sort of dives to them, trying to just grab at them, and sets himself on fire and goes down in a blaze of glory-ish, sort of screaming. The building catches up and everyone gets out. It's cool. A bit of another meanwhile is that Hodges has been, unbeknownst to Holly, but Jerome does know, visiting, what's his name?
Brady.
Brady from the book one, who is just sort of...
He's in a coma, isn't he?
He's awake, like his eye, he blinks. He's just sat up in a chair, I guess brain dead, with nothing going on.
That's the word I was looking for, brain dead.
And he just goes to see him, and he just sort of gets in his face. He's a semi-checking that he's still not dangerous, semi-taunting him, semi can't let go, because in the first book he was kind of falling in love with someone.
And he killed him.
I guess it kind of feels like it's the only connection or some way to keep her alive.
Yeah, it's exactly that. He's taunting this. He's making sure that he's getting his just desserts, basically. Even though he's in a hospital bed, he's brain dead and all the other things, he's just checking there's no recognition in the eyes. Going there and just prodding and poking and checking. And
because it's not a prison, it's like a hospital. So there's like zero security. So on the main story, where were you? Did you read the book one when it came out, and therefore, oh God, there's a sequel? Read it live, as it were.
Yeah, I read them, all three of them, like the day they dropped. I started reading them. So
I imagine you were in the wave of sort of mild disappointment.
I would, yes. So I came away from this one enjoying the story, but nowhere near as much as I enjoyed the first one. And if it wasn't for that last chapter. That last chapter made me go, what? Yeah, wicked. I can't wait for the third book. Whereas if it hadn't had that last chapter, I'd probably been, I'll read the next one if there's another one. I don't need another one. Yeah, so I did enjoy it. I did take it. But if that had been the last Bill Hodges book, I would have been disappointed after the first one, because the first one set such a good benchmark for me that the second one just didn't quite match it. I like Holly's character's development was really good in this one. I liked that there was more of the like you say with the Godfather stuff, the film tie-in, because that is something that he keeps going back to with her, especially in The Outsider. You see it in The Outsider. So I liked that she was in it. I like the fact that Jerome came back in it at the end, so you had the trio back together. I like that.
We've sort of seen him mature as well.
Mm-hmm.
They sort of like in the first one, he did this like stereotype black guy character, which sort of comedy, but everyone secretly was like, it's a bit annoying.
Yeah.
And I think he does it a little bit in this, and then there's one time he does it, it's like this would be the last time he would ever do it. Even he knew it was annoying. Like you sort of see him let go of it.
Yeah. I liked Morris. I thought Morris was a good antagonist. He's very, very he had like you said earlier, the element of misery, that obsessionist approach to something. Like that was his life, basically. That before he was in prison, while he was in prison, while he's in prison, and then that was all that was left when he got out of prison, was these books and this story and this character. He almost based his existence around this person. So
because there's a super fun bit, because he doesn't know what's in the notebook because he never had a chance to flick it. He just hopes that there's something as good. But when he's talking with the kid and he has the sister, he's like, you don't know what's in the notebooks, do you? There's not one. There's like 3 Jimmy Goldsmiths, and they're the best works ever. And he's like, because he knows them enough to know he hated that last one. He's like, he leaves his wife and he burns the ad agency down. Like he basically goes back to his gloriness, and he's like, one of them's okay, one of them's really good, and then there's something that is the best thing that was ever written.
Yeah, and you're never gonna get to see it.
He's like, just give me my sister, and I will just leave these with you, and you can disappear with them. Because it almost comes down to like, you can die when you read these. Like you'll be happy to go back to jail if you read them. Like I almost like, I'll give you like 24 hours just in the car outside to read them, and then hand yourself in. If you could have got him to believe that he could just read them all once in peace, I think he could have got out of that one.
Yeah, definitely. I'm with you with the mother being shot. That was a bit of a like, whoa, fuck. Because it was just like, bang.
There's no verbal sparring. There's no, what do you want? It's
just walked in, hostage situation, gone.
Because he comes in so strong when he sees his old book friend. He literally, because he knows he won't recognize him, but he also has like a small hatchet tucked away. He sort of just brings it out so suddenly. And this guy's almost like, when he does recognize him, he's not really angry at him. He almost would have been like, let's get a drink on. You know what I mean? Like he's not that friendly, but he just comes on the attack so fast and strong. We're like, whoa, it's not necessary. It's not even necessary. This guy probably just verbally threatening me with a gift.
But this is Morris's problem throughout the story. Is his reactions are it's just every decision he makes is the wrong decision and made with ferocity and violence, even though it doesn't need it, or the situation. It's just that seems to be all he knows. I
prefer him to Brady. Is it?
Brady, yeah, okay, that's interesting.
Maybe because you spend more time with him, and I think he's more fleshed out, and I don't know, not necessarily his motivations are clear, but we understand his obsession, and we understand a lot more why.
Yeah,
I think this book is better written than Mr. Mercedes.
Okay,
it doesn't have that high tension that other one hits. Not by far. No. When you said like, this one's close to the first one, it's like it's not really. And I think that's what everyone has that thing where you're like, you know what, I can't fault it, because for what it is good. You can't sort of, it's not a poorly written book. It's not, you can sort of see not why he did everything, but it's like he just got stuck in with this story, and it's like, well, we don't need more Bill in this particular story. So why force it? I guess what would have been nice, I suppose, for the huge fans of the Bill Hodges is if he didn't call it the Bill Hodges trilogy and say there's going to be 3, and this is the second book in his story. Rather, he just put a book out, and very much like The Outside, you're going, I probably already said this at the beginning, sorry, but it was more of a surprise, and then just have like this and the second book as the Bill Hodges 2 books, I guess. Yeah. But you never know what came down to editing, and that was his intention, was to have Hodges in it. Like you said with Holly wasn't supposed to be in it so much or get all these spin-off books. She just
kept invading.
There's something, one of the characters, Bellamy's mum at one point he comes in and Bellamy, when he's a kid, comes in and his mum's reading the books. Like, what are you doing? Those are my books. And she's like, you're always reading them. I thought I'd give them a go. And then she just sort of like flattens them. She's like, that's all right. I don't know why you like it so much. And then to add into it, she's like, the third one, that's the best one. This is where it gets going. And they should all be like this one. He said, you don't know what you're talking about. And she says, the character should lead the writer. The writer should not lead the character, which sort of upsets him. What do you know and stuff? But I don't know, that was a good one that stuck with me, I guess.
That's exactly what Holly does, though, isn't it? She's the one that leads.
It seemed like from all his interviews, he told me how he's talked about her.
The fact that she's got her own novel coming out next year is testament to that.
Let me go through some of my notes. Does King have more trunk novels? Does he have a book? So he's like, this one's not very good. So seemingly no, because when is he going to write those? And he does seem to publish everything. But he does, like, this, the way this is written, it's like, imagine a writer with literally a trunk as well. It's not a bag. Yeah. It's not a suitcase. He calls it a trunk, and it is a trunk. And we know he has this whole trunk novel thing. Books of yesterday, or forgotten books, or books he didn't think were good to go into. I'm not excited for him to die. But when he dies, if all this stuff gets released, it is an exciting time for fans, to get this influx of early raw writing, which leads me to my next question. The writer didn't want these out. Where are you on a writer and his works and their importance? Franz Kafka famously gave a lot of his stuff to a friend, an editor friend or a publisher friend, and said, burn these. They're not fit for publication. He didn't. And that's most of his work, a massive chunk of his work now, he did not like and wanted destroyed. I'm glad he didn't. I'm a huge fan of his stuff. I love The Castle. I'm pretty sure The Castle was on that list, a lot of his shorts. But it's very against what the writer wanted. Yes,
that's an interesting question. So I was having a similar discussion about going into all films and TV series that you're seeing nowadays being released on streaming services, and then after they've been released, being changed or adapted or improved. Where did I stand on that? And I think the bottom line is, I am of the opinion that once it's in the public space, makes no difference. It's still the owner's work. It's not our work. We don't have a right to any of it. It doesn't suddenly become somebody else's. It's still theirs. They still own it. They still wrote it, and they can do what the hell they want with it, or with the characters, or with the storylines and all of that sort of, like the fandom that we were talking about briefly yesterday, Star Wars and Lord of the Rings, and it's like tough shit. It's not yours. You've got no say in it whatsoever. And the whole, if this is what the artist wants to do with their stories, then it's up to them. Bottom line.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, some stuff I can see why people have picked. Like Lord of the Rings is a prime one because it's, although I'm not sure, I haven't watched it, but when you're in anger with a film, it's because that's not, sometimes it's like, but that's not what the author wanted, for example. But so you, like if King said, I do have a trunk full of novels, I want them destroyed. What do you think? You're going to say, do what you want. I'm not bothered. You're not going to go, I'm dying to read those. Please don't do that.
Oh yeah, I'm not going to say I'm dying to read them. Don't do that at all. No, not for a second.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm surprised.
No, it's fine. It's up to him. It's like,
no, it is. But if he died and it was up to his son, and he said, "I'm going to publish them," would you then refuse to read them?
No, of course I'd read them. Yeah, if his son put them out and they were, and it was, if it was, even if it was against his wishes or whatever, if once it's out there and I can read it, I'll read it and I'll take it for what it is, because you're giving me the option to read it. But if you don't give me the option to read it and you don't want to, then that's your prerogative and that's up to you. I don't have any right to read it. I'm
trying to bait you a bit, but you sound very firm that you get given what you're given and shut up and like it.
Yeah, completely agree.
I guess so. Yes and no. There's some stuff I can see why it's frustrating and angering. Imagine being, like we talked about George R. R. Martin, imagine being there from the beginning.
Yeah.
And you're like, dude, I just, I'm now in my 50s. I started this as a young man.
Here we go.
Because it's something of I have committed if I'd have known.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're right. It's not up to me to say hurry up and write, but you have to see that some writers can be like disrespectful for their fans.
Mm-hmm.
You're a huge Office fan, right, nowadays?
I've watched 7 seasons of the US Office. Yes.
So there was initially a scene where Jim was going to cheat on Pam.
Okay.
And the actor refused to film it. He's like, no, this is going to piss off the fans. Deserve more. And it was written in the script. They were going to shoot it, and it was the Jim Halibut actor who's like, I'm not shooting this because it's like he's just going to piss everyone off. As far as I know, he didn't say anything about the character wouldn't do it. He was like, the fans deserve better.
Right. Well, yeah.
But there is the sessions of like, I don't know, like just being rude to your fans, I guess. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. If you've got contempt to your fan base, and that's your own bloody fault, isn't it? You're a bit of an idiot, really. But to go back to your, you buy into something and then it doesn't get followed through. The Familiar being a prime example of that. That was supposed to be a 23-book opus, opus magnus, whatever it is, and we got to book 5 and it got cancelled. Mm-hmm. There's several TV series that start off and you fall. Firefly, take that for instance. I love Firefly. I thought it was brilliant. It got cut after 8 episodes.
Not even a season.
By the network. Batgirl recently made, almost finished, had Michael Keaton in it. Warner Bros. Dropped it. I've got no right to watch that. I've got no right to see it. I'd like to possibly, but the fact that I can't, I'm not going to cry in my sleep or anything over it. That's their prerogative.
Wow, you really take it on the chin, huh? I'm trying to sort of like... No, you can, but you can still like be annoyed at something. I guess I'm really trying to push you. I want to say like, hey man, so I read Mike Flanagan remade the entire Shining, and he doesn't want to release it. It's a masterpiece, but now he's not going to release it.
I'd be gutted, but
you can download it illegally against his wishes.
Download it illegally.
He says, I would if my fans were to do that, I would disown them. All right, let's move on. Toby's
brilliant.
Toby's a man of conviction, and I'm impressed.
Yeah, I am a man of conviction, definitely.
But you're right. But I guess I don't know. I don't know where I come down. Like the Franz Kafka one was a prime example of me. Of like, I'm really glad someone went against his wishes. He's probably rolling in his grave, but Terry Pratchett, his daughter steamrolled over his hard drives. Literally hired a steamroller. He had like 5 hard drives of ideas, half-written books, abandoned books, bad books, and he said, I just don't want them out there. And his daughter literally hired a steamroller and some press and squashed them on the pavement. I guess just so people wouldn't be like, hey, like just approaching her for the rest of her and her grandchildren's and her grandchildren's life, saying, we'll give you $1 million for them. Mm-hmm. I don't... as far as I know, she's not even a writer, but that might be completely wrong if that's so. I apologize. He, not on his deathbed, but, he had hard Alzheimer's and he knew he had big health issues. He did openly say, if my daughter wants to continue Discworld, she has my full blessing. I would be excited to her to read it. I don't think anything's happened at this stage, but I don't know. I'd like to read it.
Yeah, that's lovely.
At the end of this book, Jerome buys Holly a Jimmy Gold t-shirt that says shit don't mean shit, like one of his sort of phrases. I thought that's really distasteful. Because Holly's not a fan of these books.
Yeah.
Right? They got involved in this case, but it's like, because that murderer was really into those books and he killed a bunch of people and we stopped them.
Let's celebrate it.
That's like buying her a t-shirt with the Mercedes logo going, I know you love Mercedes. That doesn't fit. She's not a fan of I don't know. I was like, what is that? That's that guy who killed all those people and sort of, tried to shot that woman in the head. And you have no...
It's a bit weird.
Because their connection is very thin. Like if we were to do it from their point of view, it's over in 48 hours.
Yeah.
I have read they're going to try and do it in the 3rd season of Mr. Mercedes TV show.
Oh, right, okay.
Which makes sense because from their point of view, it doesn't have to be a full season.
No.
And also, I've read that whoever does Mr. Mercedes doesn't exist anymore, so the whole thing is like question marked.
Right.
Like the fourth season, I suppose.
Yeah, I wasn't sure whether they were making another Mercedes season. I thought that had finished.
That's what you know what I should check, because maybe that's like information from 10 years ago.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what that's where you are with that is, because I still haven't seen. I only seen the first 4 episodes of that season,
same.
And I would like to see the rest of it at some point. Brian Gleason is a great Bill Hodges.
Trying to think of my notes here. We've been through the whole. This is a Bill Hodges sequel, and everyone's disappointed. I put this more in tone with Blaze, if you remember when we did Blaze. If I was going to put this in a box set,
I thought that earlier on.
Right in with Blaze, just that style of crime writing that's not really about the crime itself. It's more like the crime is speaking about the characters.
The motivation behind the characters. And yeah, I'd agree with that.
It's great to see the trio flying high. I'm always sad that that side of it's coming to the end and it gets personal again. Yeah, I'm always a fan of letting the characters just run for a while before you make it personal. So the amount of is it Mission Impossible films where they they loop it around and like make it so personal, like it's their boss, or I'm watching a lot of Umbrella Academy, and it's like, can we just see them take on something and succeed even with challenges, like a villain? Because it's that thing where it's Suicide Squad, it's one of them. Like you're causing the problems you're solving, and not that this trio is causing the problems they're solving, but it's like it started off super personal, like a very anomaly case. And now we've had this case, but it wasn't really their story. It was Pete's story. Like I said, we kind of wish there was like 2 more books where they were just solving the cases and it wasn't anything personal related to them. And then loop it around again.
Yeah.
I guess you could argue that The Outsider was the closest we get to that.
Yeah. Or If It Bleeds.
Oh, okay. Does that loop in? I haven't read that one yet.
That's
interesting.
That's a Finders Keepers novel.
Oh, okay. That's cool. So they do have that.
Yeah, they keep the agency going.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know. That's good then. So that's exactly what I'm talking about. I think that's all my notes. Trunk novels quite good.
So does it allude to Hodges' fate in this book?
No, but you have.
Right.
In our past. One thing we haven't talked about is the supernatural side.
Yeah.
Regarding this case.
There isn't any of it in the first 2 novels, would you say? Is there any supernatural elements?
In this novel, when he visits Brady, we get the clack.
Yes, which is the title of the chapter.
And basically, to put it bluntly, we get the understanding that Brady now has like ESP powers.
Telekinesis and...
I hate it.
It's going to be interesting with you.
Like when it's hard because I know you're a fan of the 3rd book, so whatever happens, I know you enjoyed it. But when you read this telekinesis stuff, can you remember thinking, "Oh, interesting," or was it like, "What?"
Yeah, I was like, "Oh shit, yeah, wicked, let's go."
Oh, okay. So you wanted to dig down
Bill Hodges versus a incapacitated Brady, but with powers. That's going to be freaking awesome. Yeah, that's what I thought.
There's some blunt, horrible writing. There's just a scene where literally he's like, one of the nurses, he got hit so hard on the head, they're saying that it gave him supernatural powers. Like, really? That's what these nurses are saying. That really seems like dialogue of nurses.
That makes a bit more sense when you start to read the 3rd novel, because he basically is in that room.
Yeah, he's spooking them out now. He's turning on taps.
So
he's changing the channels.
That's why they're saying that. So it kind of makes sense.
A nurse has been like, one night, like a nurse has been attacked in a bathroom, or she's cut herself, maybe. Yeah.
So that happened in this one. I thought that happened in the 3rd one, though. Yeah. So that's the stuff I was talking about, which is why, for me, that's why they said that. Basically,
it's a blunt line, though.
It becomes sort of like, ugh.
I think, I guess so. It just felt like a very grotesque blunt line in the middle of these crime books that have not had. The most supernatural we had was Clack. Like in one of the middle chapters, he just turns around and a picture of his mum, picture of Brady's mum, just falls over.
That just sent shivers through me. That did when I read that. That especially as it was in bold and capitalized, just like, oh yes, yeah. So it would be very interesting to see where you stand on this third book, because it leans heavily into
not tropes, but I feel like King. It seems like King is just gonna, I don't think, but just go back to what he knows and has done. And I guess it would have been, at this stage for me, I'm thinking it would have been nice to just keep this as a sort of just straight crimes.
Yeah,
in this
I can
world.
Understand where you're coming from.
I guess have you caught up with interviews? Was it always his intention to finish here? Did he write this as a trilogy? You know, when a lot of trilogy writers know where they want it to end and not work backwards, but was it always building to this ESP world, or was it like the whole, I put the pen down and I thought, clack, what's clack? And
I don't know.
Did the characters lead him?
Yeah, exactly. Quite possibly. I mean, the fact that I would assume so, because Brady's still alive, and he's still alive for a reason. And the way that he's kept him alive is in a way that there's no way he could be a threat ever again unless he has another way of being a threat. Because if he survived and he woke up, he's going to wake up with half his brain missing, because it was flattened by a ball in a sock.
And I guess he didn't make him. He wasn't like a genius. It wasn't like the Glass character, where it's like his power is his brain. Like he can still outsmart you, even wheelchair.
So there had to be another element of it, and we all know what King is, and that's who he is as a writer. He likes the supernatural stuff. He likes the horror elements of things, and it's not surprising that he leans into it every so often. I think the fact that he delivered 2 novels successfully without that element, he wants to deliver one with it in it. So fair enough, let's go.
I feel like you're saying, with these writers, you get what you're given and you enjoy it because you do enjoy it. And I'm like, well, one day there's going to be a novel you hate, and we have this conversation where you go, King, I demand you retcon this novel. I've got a signature of 1 million people.
Yeah, go back and rewrite 11/22/63. Yeah, so all in all, a worthy read. You enjoyed it. You're apprehensive about the third book.
No, it just, okay, we're doing the supernatural thing again. Like you're saying, it's what King does, but it's like, if I want that, I have 50 other books I can go to. He does it well. I've been looking through my shelf of Kings. There's a whole bunch I know little about, like Hearts in Atlantis. I'm looking at the back. I'm like, that seems like it has the almost magical realism, like a very like, I'm going to write like a nice drama and have a magical touch on it. I think, I don't know anything about that. If anyone can pull it off, it's him. And it's not even the pulling off. I'm sure I will enjoy it and it'll be good. It's just like we're saying, like, it's the direction you didn't really want it to go, I suppose. Like how you felt about book 2 when you read it. Like, okay, you get what you're given and I'm happy with it, but I would have rathered this. I'm going to layer in the things I didn't like about it. I would have rathered this rather than get a million people to demand he rewrites it. But I really like this one. This is one I can, again, very much like Blaze, in years to come, I can see myself wanting to read like the first half again, like the whole book, but because of a very specific section of it. Like Blaze, I would read again because of the first half, and kind of this one too, if I'm honest. It's not that I didn't enjoy the Hodges stuff, but it's just sort of like, okay, now we're just in like the fast-paced action stuff. Whereas some of the writing in that first half, like, he just does Obsession really well on this. And like I was saying, he really mirrors the kid. This kid sort of has a rough life along with Morris, even though they kind of have the opportunity to be good or bad. And they both, like, I think at one point there's a nice Gollum moment where Pete's like, I can't say this, but I'm sad that I had to burn the books. I dropped the match by accident because something made me jump. I wouldn't obviously risk anything for my sister's life, but I'm having those Frodo, so this is me saying these words, I'm having Frodo at the end of All the Rings of like, what do I do now? I had something. And he's the only one in the world outside of that writer who has it. He is being approached. There's a nice wrap up where it's like, he's being approached by pretty much everyone. Like, can you just sort of tell us what was in those books? And so I don't know what I'll do.
Yeah. No, definitely. Like you said, the parallels between the two are really good, and the obsession is well written and fleshed out, realised. Especially, I do remember very keenly the bookstore and the hatchet sequence. That was quite brutal, and I remember feeling the anxiety that Pete was going through when he was, dressing up as trying to dress up as an older person, more knowing and like bringing that bravado to his character and stuff like that.
So close and getting away with it. And it was literally, he wanted to help his sister was a bit blue and down and upset because she wasn't going to go to private school, and he literally sort of sacrificed everything. Could have got a bullet in his mum's head because he was trying to do the right thing.
Yeah.
But
I also really liked the fact that it tied it back to the Mercedes incident, and it was one of the people that was in that queue for the job centre massacre. I thought that was really nice. Brilliant.
Nice one.
Perfect.
What do you think? It's not the listeners. Keep your thoughts to yourself. Get given what you're given, and you bloody enjoy it. And if you didn't, shut your yap. I don't want to see your name on a signature, listeners.
Yeah, we don't have comments for a reason. Because you don't bloody write it.
Hey, we're going to wrap it up around there. I want to thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed. Join us again next episode, and until then, support your local bookstores and have a great day.